Picture this. You're a scientist on the brink of what you think might be a really important finding. To do this, you need a specific reagent, a unique piece of equipment, or just the right set of tools to complete your experiment. But what happens when these critical items are out of stock, misplaced, or not where you need them? This is where the JILA supply shop steps in, pivotal in the success of its research projects. JILA's supply shop is not just a store. It's the backbone of research at one of the leading scientific institutions in the world. Located on the University of Colorado Boulder's campus, the supply shop ensures that researchers have timely access to the materials and equipment they need. But it doesn't stop there. The shop meticulously tracks every item, manages requests efficiently, and supports researchers in their quest for knowledge. JILA's supply shop is comprised of 5 members. Its head, Brian Lynch, Jennifer Erickson, Randall Holiness, Daniel Lewis, and Karen Lynchvis. Today you'll hear from Brian and Jen as they discuss the ins and outs of the supply shop, from the emotional attachment of specific instruments to buying big purchase items to further advance JILA's cutting-edge research. You're listening to Humans of JILA, a JILA podcast focusing on the human narrative of the institution's researchers. I'm your host and science communicator, Kenna Hughes-Castleberry. Every month, I tell the story of a researcher or group within JILA, showcasing the human sides behind the science. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like it on our YouTube channel or follow us on Spotify, and be sure to share it with your friends and family. This episode features interviews with supply shop members Brian Lynch and Jen Erickson. So whether you're a physicist enthusiast, a current JILA member, part of JILA's vast alumni network, or considering JILA as the next step in your career, stay tuned as we dive into the crucial processes within the supply shop. Let's begin our story. The supply shop, located on the first floor of JILA's S-Wing, seems to always be bustling with activity. Perhaps I'm biased, as my office isn't too far away, but the constant movement in and out of the supply shop as ordered items are dispersed throughout the Institute gives it a reputation for productivity and efficiency. Efficient supply chain management ensures that researchers can avoid costly delays, reduce waste, and maintain the momentum needed to push the boundaries of science. In the high-stakes research world, time is of the essence, and the supply shop's role in keeping operations smooth cannot be overstated. We'll first hear from Brian Lynch, the head of the supply shop, who discusses the importance of efficiency and working within JILA's fast-paced environment.
My name is Brian Lynch. I am the manager of the supply office here at JILA. I'm originally from Virginia, and after I graduated college, I just wanted to go somewhere new, and I had a friend in Colorado at the time, and he was in Boulder, and he said, "Come on out." And it was as simple as that, because I needed new scenery, and then I tried to look for jobs. And at the time, I had a temporary job from a temp agency, but it was at CU. Yeah. It was in travel accounting. They were in region at the time, and they only the temp jobs you were only allowed to have for 6 months. And so at near the end of the 6 months, my manager over there, Melanie was her name. She's asking, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I don't know. I like working at CU, even though it was a temp agency. I like it, and we'll see how it goes." And then I'm not really sure how her being the manager of travel accounting was interacting with Ed, my future boss here at JILA. Somehow they talked. I don't understand how he had anything to do with travel accounting, but whatever happened, somehow she said, "Ed, are you looking for somebody? I have this person working for me that's really good, and I would recommend him if you're interested." And it just so happened they did need people. So it was sort of, so I got a word put in for me, but I still had to go through the proper channels of, at the time, officially applying, all that kind of stuff. Okay. But JILA, and in this case, Ed, had the recommendation, which I was thankful for. And so then I did the official application process, and then I got called. I got called to come in and do an interview, and so I did it, got the job, and then at the time, that was part of the supply office. I wasn't the manager yet, but then eventually Ed retired, and here I am. So it's kind of a long-winded thing, but that's how it happened.
And when did you originally join? How long have you been here?
I have been here since November of 1996.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. So you have seen so much change.
Yes.
over those years? Anything in particular that stuck with you?
I mean, it was interesting to come on that time because I got to see several different versions of JILA because at the time, of course, Ed hired me, but the head of the administration at JILA was Pat McInerney. And and he ended up working here for like 30 years or something. So it was sort of the ending of his time here. And so I got used to how it was then. And then Julie Baczynski was hired after he retired. And then after that, after Julie, then it was Missy and of course Beth. And so it was just, it was still JILA the whole time, but just different management teams and so different perspectives, I guess. The other thing, not sure that you specifically asked this, but when I first came on board, it was a fun place to work, and it's not that it's not now. It's just it was real loose back then. It seemed like, sure. Yeah, and it was. I mean, people still had their work to do, but it was a real fun place, and that's I think what got me to stay. I thought, oh, this is a really fun place to be. So anyway, just the different administrations and just just different perspectives, maybe different management styles. It's been interesting when you're here that long. That's what you're going to experience. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Could you kind of walk us through like what your day-to-day looks like in the supply office?
My day-to-day, well, basically, like a lot of people, probably first thing I'm checking email and different like that. See what, honestly, yes, I'm looking for things that I might have to do, but also if there's any fires to put out, because maybe since I turned off my computer the day before, somebody said, oh my gosh, something broke down in my lab and I need this to be ordered, quickly, immediately, basically. And so I'm looking for things like that. What is an emergency? What's something I need to jump on? Another thing, it's just automatic to me, is also look at what kind of orders have come in since I've last looked at it. So I pull all the orders into the directory and assign them all to me. And that's like the first thing that I do. And then what I'm also doing throughout the day is distributing orders to my team. Again, going back to those emails, finding out what what we might need to do in the supply office that day. So again, talking to my team, who might need to do what, deciding, and whether I'm taking it on or assigning it to someone. Whatever it may be. But the first order of business really is buying. So that's really the focus, and that's the day to day, is throughout the day, going into the system, seeing what more orders have come in, assigning them to me, and then eventually distributing them. So that happens, at least a few times a day, maybe anywhere between 3 and 5 times a day of doing that. That's the main focus. And then there's just, other things that we need to do. We need to ship stuff out. We need to locate where something might be that someone's looking for a package, a crate, or what have you. And, there's just all sorts of little requests that come up during the day that we need to tackle. But really the focus is on buying. That's the main thing that we have to do. So that's like a typical day.
I know Jen mentioned like there's a wide variation in what you guys buy.
Yes.
Do you have anything that particularly sticks out in your mind of like, this was really random that we had to purchase, or like, this was something that I have never done before but sounds really interesting?
Let's see what comes to mind. I mean, a lot of times when I think of interesting ones, I usually go to like really large purchases. Okay. So just making the buys for the dilution refrigerators, for instance, and we bought several, but I just remember the first one we were working on. Just due to the dollar amount, it was something that I hadn't really experienced before. Because you're talking about $500,000, so
right.
in one purchase. So that was really what stood out, because it seemed like there were more rules to follow and different things you had to do to get this purchase to go through. So that was really satisfying when it came through, because I knew it was such a crucial piece to our research here. So that's what sticks out. I'm trying to think if I've had some strange. I mean, there have been some sort of weird, different purchases that I've had.
How often do you have like emergency orders, like you mentioned earlier, that you have to, deal with?
And that's what we call rush orders. Daily.
Oh, wow.
Daily rush orders. I try to figure out if it's something that somebody needs like right away, like it really is a rush.
Yeah.
And as an example, something breaks down in a lab, and it's such a crucial piece that the everything stops until this part is replaced. I mean, that's the most crucial rush order that we might do. But then other ones, maybe someone's in the middle of taking data, and they need to get some results, and they need this one thing to finish out taking data, and then they can working with the data that they get. But like, yeah, just those are instances where you might need a rush.
Sure.
Maybe also, I don't know. Maybe sometimes there's a rush that maybe they've only made a certain number. They've only got one or two left in stock.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, that's happened. So there's various reasons for it, but it's daily. I would say, and the amount of rush orders we get per day, I mean, it's probably, I would say between 2 and 5, maybe even more than that sometimes on a really, really bad day. When I say bad day, I mean just things are going wrong.
Oh, yeah.
People need things.
Everything's breaking.
Yeah, everything's breaking. So that does happen. Yeah.
More of a different question, but why do you think a research institute needs a supply shop? Why is that important?
Basically because I'd like to think that we understand their needs. I mean, we may not understand the science behind it, but we understand that they need certain things for them to do their research. And, it could be something, if we're talking about theorists, okay, we might need to order computers and different things that they're going to need. Obviously, it's going to be on a much smaller scale than experimentalists who need all kinds of things, equipment, parts and supplies, services and maintenance contracts, and so on and so forth. And so I think because we're the ones working on it, we have sort of a personal connection to it. It means something to us because we want to make sure we get it done and we get it done right. Yeah. And we know how important it is. And that way the researchers don't have to worry about that. They only have to worry about telling us what they need, and then we've got to figure out how to get it done. So,
sure.
But that's why I think it's important, because without that, I think, you don't have someone that really can appreciate why it's important. If it got sent somewhere else, they might just look at it as any other order. But we have a stake in it because we work here, so it means something to us.
Right. Or you have a history, right? So you're like, I know this lab. I know why they need this. Mm-hmm. I know what the exact thing that they need.
Right.
Like you can't get a different one.
Right. So. And also when we're working with purchasing agents, we can explain JILA's point of view because we understand it. And so when they want to know why do we need to rush this order? Why do we need to do this? We have an answer for them because we have experience working with these labs and why they need what they need. So it's just having that personal connection that it makes it a little better to get it done. Yeah.
So. Yeah, that's really important. What is your favorite thing about working here? Why do you like working at JILA?
Well, I will give you an answer that I've pretty much given steadily the whole time I've been here, and it's the people. Yeah. That's why. Obviously, we understand in my office, and I understand in my office the importance of it, of our job, what we're supposed to do. But what keeps me here is the people. I like the people here, and the ones that have been here for a while, it's great to share stories with, that we have all this experience being at JILA. But then also just constantly having the new group of grad students and postdocs coming in at all times. It's fun to meet new people and where they're from and what brings them to JILA, what are their interests. And honestly, I've given that answer probably the whole time I've been here. That's what I love the most. So it's fun to do the work and get something, feel like you accomplish something and get something done for people. But it's the joy of interacting with different people is what I like most. So yeah.
And we have very unique people here, don't we?
Yes, that's true. And I like that. I like the uniqueness of all the different personalities here at JILA. It's been great. So, but yeah, that's been my consistent answer, and it still remains so.
Brian works closely with Jen Erickson, JILA's property manager. In her interview, Jen discusses tracking equipment from its initial purchase to its final retirement.
This is Jennifer Erickson. I am the JILA property manager, which means that I buy and manage our scientific equipment.
Can you tell me a little bit about your journey to JILA?
So I had lived up in Canada for quite a number of years, and I decided to move back to Colorado. And there was this, up there I'd been doing whatever I could to support my ice climbing habit, which meant I managed the office in a heliport, I managed a workwear store, I worked at as a construction assistant superintendent. And then I moved back down here to be closer to my family. And there was this ad in probably the Boulder Daily or something like that, a really kind of vague, obscure little ad that's had a phone number, I think. And I just called up and I got an interview with Brian Lynch and Jeffrey J. And we sat around a table and talked for a little while, and it went pretty well, and I got the job. I really wasn't sure what I would be doing, but anyway, that's how I got here. And that was in 2008.
Okay. And you've been here ever since.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. So can you tell us, like, your day-to-day? What does working in the supply shop look like for you?
So I place almost all of the high dollar orders, so things over $10,000.
Wow.
And we order pretty much everything in supply office that you could possibly want, from software, gases, freight, pencils, lasers, everything from the tiniest little purchase of $1.13 plus $9.99 in shipping up to your $750,000 dilution refrigerator, whatever people need. And people need some kind of strange things. Yeah, sometimes we're scratching our head about what on earth is going on with this one.
Okay.
For example, JILA has some outreach programs that they do with children. So for the outreach, they'll order things like colored balloons and little plastic toys, and I'm sure it's all related to demonstrating science, but sometimes I'm like, what on earth are they going to do with this?
Yeah.
You know, we always have to put a note. No, really, this is for real.
Keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
So what is kind of the most common thing that people order, do you think?
Little electronics. Like if we're talking bulk, you know, all those little bits and pieces come in. Sometimes you're ordering 1,000 at a time.
Wow.
Now, you know, they only cost 0.0396 cents each.
I love that you know this off the top of your head. You're like, I've done this so many times now. Well, I know you mentioned previously off mic that you keep track of a lot of this stuff too. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I do an inventory every 2 years. Okay. JILA has about, well, at my last inventory, which was a year ago, we had over 46.4 million in inventory.
Wow.
And over 1,700 pieces of inventoried equipment. Now, this is just the fancy stuff. We're not inventorying the little things. So it's a big job.
Yeah.
I spend about 2 months crawling around under optical tables, scurrying through the hallway with a clipboard and a headlamp, and photographing things and trying to, you know, sneak attack people who are ignoring my annoying emails, and trying to inventory as much of it as possible. We really need to get 98% to be anywhere near an acceptable level. So there is a lot of revisiting. Now, I know you couldn't find your laser last week. Or waking up in the middle of the night of, oh, I could check there. You know.
Sure. Have you had difficulty with people misplacing things?
Yeah, you know, scientists, their emphasis, as it should be, is on doing really cool things with the equipment, not keeping track of where they put it after they were finished using it. So yeah, things move around. They loan something to another scientist and forget about it, or, they stash it in a box on a high shelf in a corner of a room or under an optical table, and some of these labs are, well, you got electronics stacked literally from floor to ceiling, and the ceiling could be as high as 20 feet. And so that's a lot to go through.
Yeah.
And they hold on to things for decades.
So they get emotionally attached.
Yes. Yeah. They're like pets. Almost.
They don't want to get rid of this piece of
Right.
equipment.
Yeah. It's so lovely. It was so beautiful when it was young. Yeah. We had so much fun together. Did I tell you about these results I got with this thing?
Oh, and I think you mentioned they also name them, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. One lab that I know of does signs of the zodiac. We're talking Chinese zodiac.
Okay.
I've seen hobbit names, cartoon characters, animals. Yeah. And then just regular old names like
Harold.
yeah, exactly.
So do you, I guess, maybe in my mind, do you ever come in and say, where is this piece of equipment? And somebody says, oh, Harold. That's who you're talking about, right? Does that ever happen?
Well, I'll tell you, there was one lab, and I came in looking for a piece of equipment, and I can't remember what the name was, but then it had the name on a piece of, tape on the equipment, and it also had a stuffed animal strapped to it that was the image of the name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that one you don't see every day.
No.
Do you think the emotional attachment helps it make it easier for you to find the objects because people don't let things go? Or does it make it harder because now there's more stuff?
I think it makes it a little bit easier because a lot of the time when they're naming equipment, it's because, for example, they have 7 pumps that are all the same brand.
Right.
And they have to tell them apart because one pump goes to one thing and another pump goes to another thing. Or, it's 7 of the same lasers or whatever. So they're really trying to differentiate similar things so that if they know that such and such a pump goes to such and such a laser, then they will know that that's probably the pump I'm looking for, or pumping I'm looking for.
I see. So yeah, being able to differentiate whether instead of pump 1, pump 2, this one's Fred, this one's Jolene.
Yeah.
It's easier.
Some people do go for the plain old pump 1, pump 2, which is, let's face it, that's boring. And,
It is.
You know.
So you would encourage more naming, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and JILA really is more of a naming your equipment kind of place. Not a pump 1, pump 2 kind of place.
No, we have too many fun things happening, right? So yeah, that sounds about right. And yeah, that probably makes your job more interesting, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it is really interesting to see what they're doing up to the point beyond which I have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's most of us, right? Yeah. They're like, I know the equipment, I see it. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, understandable. Excellent. Well, can you tell us a little bit about why a supply shop is important to a research institute? Why some place should have that?
Right. So if you're a theorist, it doesn't matter that much because you don't need a lot of equipment. You got your, computer and your brain and your pencil.
Yeah.
Maybe some software and books and you're good to go. But for the experimentalists, they just need massive amounts of equipment to do these very elaborate experiments that they set up. And so And they also need all the little bits and pieces to tie everything together.
Right.
So, yeah, we buy everything, like I said, from the tiniest little fancy little screws to we've got pieces of equipment that fill a whole room. Yeah. So we not only need to get this stuff to them and in as efficient a manner as possible, but also we need to follow procedures and leave a paper trail so that our sponsors and CU and NIST can be assured that we're spending the money and tracking the money in a way that follows their rules. And if they can trust us to do this properly, then they're much more likely to, it's much more likely that our sponsors will give us more money so that we can do more research.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you mentioned off mic that that's why you want the supply office to be called the procurement center, right?
Right. Yeah, we're called supply office, which I mean people will probably just think pencils.
Right. Or notepads or markers.
Right.
Yeah.
And we do that. We do it all. But we also do some pretty complicated things as well.
Right. Yeah. Well, my last question for you, Jen, and again, I appreciate you explaining everything to us and walking us through what you do, is more of just a broad question, which is, what is your favorite thing about working here? Why do you enjoy working at JILA?
JILAns are quirky people, energetic, and unexpected. You never know what interest someone might have that is far removed from science. You never know who you're going to meet in the hallway or what sort of interesting conversation you might have. Yeah. People here have a lot of enthusiasm, and not just for science. There's a lot of variety and surprise that you'll find in the people that you meet around here.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Ganna.
Thank you for listening to Humans of JILA, a JILA podcast. Be sure to subscribe to JILA's YouTube channel for more information and to keep listening to these episodes. This episode featured interviews with Supply Shop members Brian Lynch and Jen Erickson. Production design, sound design, and research by Kenny Hughes Castleberry, with assistance from JILA's Science Communication Office in the Supply Shop. Sounds and music by Pixabay and Kevin MacLeod. JILA is a joint institute between NIST and the University of Colorado Boulder. JILA hosts this podcast. Any use of this podcast without JILA's permission or credit is prohibited.